Welcome to L22 Racing. This is just a quick video to go through the collision that occurred at the Suzuka race at Crest Autosport on Thursday. I just thought I'd add some out-of-the-box thinking, which is a bit different to maybe how other people have interpreted this incident. I will play it now quickly in the background, but please take note, these videos are for constructive learning mainly. They're not to single out anybody in particular, and hopefully we can all learn from it. I will do more videos in the future with proper instructions to what I'm going to be doing these videos about. It's going to include maybe tuning setups, tyre control, racing etiquette mainly, also doing overtaking manoeuvres, whether it's worth doing it or waiting back, for example, and a few other things such as looking at telemetry data, how to use it, also looking at visibility options such as the helicopter app, spotters and VR versus screens, restricted view and awareness. But for now, we'll just go through this video. So basically, we've seen there's quite a lot of mess. At first glance, it looks like there's just lots of single collisions. However, I've been able to identify that it was basically a chain reaction incident. So at the start of a race, that's standing start, it's high risk in that there's a lot of traffic. When there's a lot of traffic, you've got to be careful, obviously, not to have a collision and end your race. But there's two main principles that I always think about when I'm starting a standing start race. One is to get off the line as cleanly and as neatly as possible whilst maintaining good line discipline. Now, the reason I say that is, if you're zigzagging and you start and you're spinning, there's a high chance you could spin left or right into the other cars and also create an obstacle for the cars behind. So getting a good launch is obviously quite hard, but also important. Secondly is line discipline. When you do get going, initially you've just started, your adrenaline's running, you're thinking, oh, I need to try and make that position up. Or there's a lot going through your mind, you're unsettled, you've got nerves perhaps. It's very easy to do something without really thinking about it, and that can create a large crash. So basically, the specific thing I'm thinking about right now is line discipline. If, when it's busy, you know there's nobody on your left, you've looked, you've checked, there's definitely nothing there, yes, move, but do it smooth, do it predictively, especially when it's busy traffic. And basically, the first couple of laps are all about making the dust settle. Once the dust has settled, you can race a bit differently. The first laps are all about being a bit forgiving, and what I mean by that is let somebody pass, maybe give them a bit more space you maybe normally would, etc., because then you're going to survive the first lap, and that's what it's all about, really, isn't it? It's all about surviving the first lap and having a race. That's what we're all here for. But basically, we're just going to watch this unfold. So you can see there, it gets a bit of a start, zigzag, and then at this point here, what this driver should have done is maintained his right hand side line discipline. Unfortunately, you can see there the car turns in, which forces the car on the left of him to turn in, which then collects, as you heard there, the instant on the left. There you go. And then this driver unfortunately comes out of it quite bad. Now, at first glance, it looks like these two are getting on nicely. They've got a good race ahead of them. If I just jump back to this guy now, his race carries on by the looks of it. So to him, you wouldn't think that was a major problem. If I just jump on his cockpit super quickly, you can see there visibility isn't great. Your mirrors are slightly out of sight with this field of view, especially when you're looking at it on there you are, slight contact, carry on. You wouldn't think that was too much of an issue. He maybe doesn't think it's his fault, but unfortunately, not having that line discipline, it's actually created start. There you go. Look at the angle we're looking at here. Not down the track. It's actually aiming across the track at this point. It's actually created this chain reaction. So if we just jump back to the chase cam, basically this is the very start of the chain reaction. So we've got this red car here, Bobby Dazzler, on the grass at the start, and then this is the second row. So basically the start line of most races, as you can see in front, you've got three cars there. You got this row of three cars. Just jump back a row. You've got this row of three cars in front. Just jump back again. You can see again there's another row of three cars, and there's actually four in this particular row. So at the start finish line, you tend to be quite tight in your configuration. So you need to keep that line discipline as much as possible. So if you qualify on the right, you're pretty much going to take that first corner on the right, which in this case is the inside. So if we just jump back to this incident here, what this actually creates for that second row, now that we've identified that there's rows of cars, hopefully that keeps everybody in the mindset that I'm going through here. This guy on the right, natural reaction, because these cars are obviously coming together, is to just keep right, keep out the way, and just avoid it. Unfortunately, there's a car, if you can just see it, to his right, which unfortunately he picks up, and there has this collision which catches this guy on the left out. So this guy on the left's race is obviously now buggered. This whole row, in fact, they've all been taken out the race, and that's their race scuppered already. So this guy now, he probably looks at this footage and thinks, well, I didn't do it wrong, but my race has been ruined. Which, looking at that, you'd think, yeah, maybe. Now, I will reiterate at this point, I'm not an expert. I'm not saying this is what you should do or shouldn't do specifically. It's easy to say when you're sat on the couch looking at a TV screen, for example. But what I would have done in this particular instance is, as soon as this collision happened in front, I'd lifted off the throttle or dabbed the brake, especially at this point here. Because what's happening is, the car on the left is obviously slowing down on the grass. The cars on the right are quite close, and the cars in front are obviously just had a collision and slowing down. And obviously the high risk. By carrying on at full throttle, and you can tell there's definitely no braking because there's no brake lights on, you're actually allowing yourself to get boxed in. So you're going in like a U shape of cars travelling at high speed with nowhere to move. So what happens is, when these two actually have a collision on the right, if this car had backed off just a little bit, just not enough to become an obstacle for the cars behind, but just enough that they can slot in behind these two, so now this front end of this car would have just been in line with the back of this one. As these two have had a collision, they would have come across the front of him, and he would have been able to continue almost on his line unaffected. But unfortunately, because this car, you can see there, 193, is continued at speed. I mean, that car's at 200, so there might have been a slight lift, or he might have had a good drive, etc. But had he had slowed down a bit more, he would have avoided this being taken out in this collision. Now, that's the second row of instance. There's also a third row of instance as well, which is this here. So if I just slightly rewind it, so obviously there's a collision here. The next response is to obviously dodge the collision in front. Exactly the same again. Just normal racing incident whereby the cars behind are trying to dodge the collision. So they've come together. Look, he's turned right. Unfortunately, there's been a car there, which normally might have just pushed these two wide, but because there's a car on the outside of him as well here, and the point of which they've touched is where the axle is. It's a bit like a police pit manoeuvre, which creates this rotation and gets the cars to spin out quite easily. So basically, you've got the initial line discipline fault, which has pushed one of the cars to the left, which has created this secondary line, which has made the cars move to the right to dodge it, and they've come together. Then you've got the third line of chain reaction, where this guy's tried to slightly move out the way, but I mean, you can see there how tight they are. So obviously they've all come together, and straight away there you can see where it's going to pan out. That unfortunately is their race damage as well. There's a slight touch here as he's rejoining the track. There's not a lot of space. Unfortunately, that is just part of the incident, just getting cleaned up and caught up. But as you can see, when you actually break it down, although it looks like there's a disaster of crashes in front, all these different crashes, I mean, there's left, there's right, there's ones in front, there's ones that he's just come back on. It all stems from the same incident. So hopefully that details the importance of some line discipline, which all originated, or the root cause, this manoeuvre here, which on board here doesn't look that bad. But unfortunately, the reaction as to what came next, the chain reaction, it was obviously quite different. Normally I just end the video there, There was another incident which I've seen in the Imola race as well, so I'm just going to quickly try and cover that as well. So I do apologise, this one shouldn't take quite as long, and I will try and keep these videos as short as possible going forwards. So basically, if I go back on board with this guy, this is the dead common lap 1 incident when there's loads of traffic on the grid. Basically, your braking points. There you go. So quite a lot of cars in front are all braking early because there's a lot of traffic on the road. So if you just skip forward here, look, you can see here loads of cars. Everyone's braking up early to give each other space because you can't go around here flat out this many cars. There will be an incident. So basically, all these drivers that are at the front typically seem to be quite experienced in that they're braking early, giving each other space. They've all made it round, you know, keeping the good distance. But what it means is everyone is braking early. So there you go. All these brake lights are on now. So if we just jump back to our onboard footage here, you can see at this car in front when he starts to brake. There, look, brake light's already on. So I'll just do that in slow motion. There, so his brake lights have already come on. At full race speed, you typically brake here roughly at full speed. We've just come from a start-finish line from standstill. Basically, you'd normally brake a bit later if you're on your own. However, the car's braking quite early given the speed, so it's caught this guy out. This guy was not expecting to brake this early going into this corner because it's quite a long way out, but unfortunately because of the amount of traffic, that's warranted the early brake, and the signal obviously is the brake lights coming on straight away. What happens next is the car, because he didn't anticipate that car in front braking so early and so heavy, there's a collision where it goes in the back of him. It could have been avoided by, at this point here, whilst you got the time and the space, to just point your car to the right and give yourself that space, so that if the car in front didn't brake, or for example you wanted to even make a manoeuvre, you could even come down the inside slightly. But unfortunately, when he he's brought that hard and straight line, because that's naturally how you tend to brake heavily. The steering doesn't become as effective. He's found himself perfectly lined up behind the car in front. Now, interestingly, he's doing 222 kilometers per hour. The car in front of him, which is Chris in this instance, is only doing 170. So as you can see there straight away, there's a 52 kilometer speed difference, which is quite big given the small amount of distance in front. At this speed difference, there's no time for this guy to actually avoid the collision, and at this point, as you can see, the steering wheel is actually pointing straight. He does try to turn, but the speed's too far. It's 200 kilometers an hour at this point, far too close. It's definitely going to be a collision. But this is the important thing. Watch his speed as it drops. I try and catch this as best I can. So he's braking 220, 210, 60. And then all of a sudden it just jumps right down to 110 120 within a split second. So 160, 125 within probably not even 2 meters. And then what that means is this guy braking, you can count it. You can actually count the speed he's braking. 210, 200, 190, 180, 160, 120. All of a sudden there's a big jump there of 40 kilometers, and that 40 kilometer drop instantly from 160 to 120 means that these cars cannot brake that fast. The brakes just do not stop the car that quickly. So therefore, the car that was behind this driver, which there was a guy behind this driver, he was unable to brake hard enough, obviously, to stop in time, because this car now was going rather slow because of that collision, which created another chain reaction as follows. There you go. So that, unfortunately, is this guy's race ended. Basically, that could have been avoided. A bit more space back here. I'll just go back a little bit further. There's plenty of time here. In fact, ironically, had he kept his line discipline right, he wouldn't have even been behind this car, and he probably even made a position up. But ironically, he's got stuck behind the car, it broke early, he's coming in a lot faster than the car in front, which has created this incident. Now this does create another chain reaction. So this car's been shunted forwards by this car. However, this chain reaction's continued. This car obviously slows down significantly, and as you can see here, there's almost another collision with the car behind him. Luckily, there isn't a further collision, which at this angle you can see he's got a bit of a sideways slide on. It would have spun him out, and obviously in the corner would have created more carnage. So there's a couple of chain reactions there, quite a bit of carnage, but I think the giveaway, the takeaway comment for this particular opening series is line discipline is super important at the start finish of a standing line start. Hopefully, we can take that away. Might prevent some more accidents in the future, but also braking points as well. Especially when the track is busy, like it is here. You can see everyone. I mean, normally you wouldn't even brake here at these speeds these guys are going, but because of the amount of traffic, people do brake. So you've got to anticipate it and brake earlier than you would normally expect. If you would normally brake where the yellow car is on the right there, maybe just brake where the car on the left is, just a little bit earlier, because it gives you that bit of space. It means you can move into gaps. It means you can avoid an accident. And you're not really going to lose any positions, because everybody, or most people at least, are also being cautious as well. Once the laps are settled down, everyone's in single file, you can then pick it up and be a bit more aggressive perhaps. But in the opening lap particularly, because of the amount of cars coming into a corner, line discipline here is absolutely key, number one. Well, I hope that was of use. Let us know what you think, and hopefully I might do some more. Many thanks.